Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. To bring in new What If called, What If the Reds and Blues were part of Overwatch Part 1. Link down in the description of the fan fiction of this, What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this isn't a scam. Chapter 1, The Recall. Winston was finished deciding on whether or not he should push the recall button. He pushed it, and all the names of Overwatch members came listing down. The first person on that list called him, Winston, is that you love? Tracer, his longtime friend asked, it's been too long. He grabbed his glasses and pushed them onto his face, yes, Lena, it has been. Just before he was about to grab his stuff and leave he saw a photo of his father figure standing next to a man wearing glasses and a suit. He looked closer to find a name tag, Dr. Leonard L. Church. He read aloud. He swiftly made his way to Athena, his AI system. Athena, look up the name Dr. Leonard Church within the Overwatch database. It took about 7 seconds before an entire background check was ran on him. Athena went down the list of achievements, most known for creating the best team of highly skilled soldiers to ever go into combat. However, his prized achievement was his creation of the Alpha, an AI system built off his memories, after his wife had passed. She pulled files of a group called Freelancers, another of the Alpha, and the last one of his wife. When Winston heard of the Freelancers he grew with eagerness. Athena, look up the locations of the Freelancers. He ordered. Athena took a few seconds before responding, error, most of the Freelancers are deceased, while others are off the grid. She stated, lowering Winston's chances of hope. However, the director chose a specific team to watch over the Alpha in hopes of keeping it safe. Winston grew curious of this group. Show personal files. He saw photos of them followed by criminal and military records. He sighed in frustration at his last pick, Athena. Send them the invite. He began to regret this decision, however he didn't have much of a choice. They were low IQ'd, violence-prone, outlaws. He didn't know whether to arrest them or help them. He went through each record, starting with Red Team. His first one was an older man with a crew cut. Name, Sarge. Gender, male. Height, 5 feet 11 inches. Type, DPS. Weapon type, short-ranged shotgun. Abilities, long shots, discipline. Ultimate, you just got Sarge. Increases damage on weapon and reload time by 90%, lasts 20 seconds. Pros, high respected leader. Cons, extremely violent tendencies. Background, after receiving his rank as sergeant he intended to train his troops in every possible way. He pushed many to their limits until he was the only one of his team. Desperate to rethink his leadership techniques, he went home to work back on his farm. He was known for training the Alpha to lead. Winston stroked his chin and thought it reminded him of Gabriel in Soldier 76. He flipped over to the next one to see a cyborg with a slim-faced Dutch Irishman. Name, Richard Simmons. Gender, male. Height, 6 feet 3 inches. Type, support. Weapon type, battle rifle. Abilities, shock punch, short targeting system, shield upgrade. Ultimate, Simmons-sized slaughter. Secret barrage of multiple projectiles hidden in his left arm. Deals between 200 to 450 damage, depending on range. Pros, high IQ, genius engineering degree. Cons, low self-confidence. Background, after losing his arm defending an Omnic from a rogue Bastion unit he received a bioengineering upgrade. He has an IQ as well as great understanding of machinery. He was known for teaching the Alpha intellect. Winston though about this one, but he seemed like a nerd, more than a hero. He checked on the next one to see a chubby-cheeked tanned Pacific Islander. Name, Dexter Griff. Gender, male. Height, 6 feet 6 inches. Type, tank. Weapon type, grenade launcher. Abilities, smoke grenade, flash grenade, quick snack. Ultimate, meth shroom, grants Griff a full 25 seconds of increased speed of 150%, after wear down will cause a short self-stun effect. Pros, excellent pilot, and human shield. Cons, lazy, crash prone. Background, after leaving Hawaii with his little sister, Griff went seeking a job as a taxi man. One night a group called Los Muertos bombed his favorite pizza place. He went on an all-out war against them with a grenade launcher he found at the bombing site. Known for teaching the Alpha how to handle vehicles. Winston couldn't believe his choices for members of Overwatch. But this next one was confused about what to do, as he came across a blonde-haired man with a wink. Name: Franklin Delano Donut. Gender: possibly male, maybe female for future preferences. Height: 5 feet 7 inches. Type: defense. Weapon type: pistol. Grenades. Abilities: sticky trap grenade, shrapnel grenades, bouncing grenades. Ultimate: fabulous rain. Releases a rain of Junkrat-like grenades covering a 15 feet to a 30 feet gap depending on height. Pros: demolition expert. Cons: very confusing at times. Background: after leaving his hometown in Iowa he became known in high school as Most Fabulous. At his prom, he and his friend, lost within the file, lol, were attacked in the Omnic Crisis. His friend, hehe, I like trolling, died infuriating Donut as he retaliated with handmade Motolovs and fire grenades. Known for teaching the alpha about emotional states. Winston didn't know how to feel about this one, the only decent one was the last one, and not even that. Name: L0P3Z. Gender: Omnic. Height: 5 feet 10 inches. Type: DPS. Weapon type: dual SMGs. Abilities: maintenance check, blowtorch burn. Ultimate: Lopez Le Pesado. Grants Lopez a multiple-shot rocket launcher for 10 seconds dealing similar damage to Bastion's tank mode. Background: created in a Mexican repair shop as an assistant to his creator. When the Omnic Crisis occurred his creator died at the hand of his own kind, he later took up revenge against them. Known for teaching the alpha about machinery. Winston was tired of reading about these men, however he was halfway done and was set on saying no to all. However, this time of need he needed all of them, including the next, however he regretted it when he came across the first blue team member. He wore glasses and had reddish-orange hair. Name: Dr. Frank Dufrance. Gender: male. Height 6 feet 0 inches. Type: support. Weapon types: healing gun, rocket launcher. Abilities: healing feelings, rocket double shot, shock charge. Ultimate: taste of oblivion, a rocket storm mixed with a healing matrix that's lethal to enemies but helpful to teammates. Pros: medical experience. Cons: split personality disorder. Background: after experiencing one of the first encounters of a fragment of the Alpha AI he became violent in times of need. Despite being a pacifist in his earlier life he relies on the part the fragment left behind to fulfill his anger-fueled rampages. Known for teaching the Alpha about the human anatomy. He thought that this one belonged in a psychiatric hospital, but the next one would raise some concerns from the females of Overwatch. As he skipped to an African American man with a smirk and an afro. Name: Lavernius Tucker. Gender: male. Height: 5 feet 6 inches. Type: DPS. Weapon type: custom-made samurai sword pistol. Abilities: swish swish stab, slice and dice, slash strike. Ultimate: Bo Chica Bow Wow. Brings more speed power to allies around him, increasing attack speed by 75%. Pros: skilled swordsman, great leader. Cons: long-time sexual harassment history. Background: after winning a sexual offense case, he left his hometown in Detroit to seek out guidance. He stumbled upon an Asian monastery where they taught him the art of swordsmanship. Known for teaching the Alpha about human interactions between two people. He was still scratching his head on why he's still even deciding on bringing them in. The last was going to be some serious property damage, as he found a tall blonde boy. Name: Michael J. Caboose. Gender: male. Height: 6 feet 11 inches. Type: tank. Weapon type: assault rifle, fists. Abilities: vehicle destroyer, thick-skulled, freckles. Ultimate: I hate babies, gives Caboose a total of 50% melee knockback along with an increase of 25% speed, and finally 100% melee strength. Pros: unimaginable strength. Cons: low IQ. Background: growing up with a low IQ his parents were always on watch in case he got into trouble. When Talon first attacked his home he protected his family using his immense strength. When he was angered he went on a rampage that left Talon with 22 casualties. Known for teaching the Alpha about bonds between humans. He thought that these idiots would cost him more in damages than anything else. He still had no choice, but the last one had little information, a black-haired, goatee man. Name: Leonard L. Church. Gender: male. Height: 6 feet 1 inch. Type: defense. Weapon type: sniper rifle. Abilities: unknown. Ultimate: unknown. Pros: unknown. Cons: unknown. Background: unknown. Winston stroked his chin as he looked at the man in the screen. What makes you so special? He asked. Later, at a meeting of the following Overwatch members: Winston, Tracer, McCree, Soldier 76, Farah, Mercy, Zenyatta, Genji, Zarya, Reinhardt, Torbjorn, Lucio, and Symmetra. Winston was at the center of a long narrow table, with the remaining Overwatch members that had first arrived. Winston cleared his throat and spoke in his deep booming voice. Now then, seeing as you all came, the world needs us, but if we are to go against adversaries such as Talon, we need to open our ranks. I was going to assemble a team of highly skilled covert operatives to assist, but they are unfortunately unavailable. Winston tossed a specific set of folders to each of the following members with a color code on it. Maroon with Symmetra, teal with Zarya, red with Soldier 76, blue with Reinhardt, pink, lightish red with McCree, purple with Mercy, brown with Zenyatta, orange with Lucio, and Winston himself look over the cobalt folder. He then waited for a response. Now then, any questions? He asked to the group. Soldier 76 rose his hand. Yes, I have one. Are you insane? He asked. Zarya slammed her folder down on the table. I agree, just this man alone makes me hate them. She said, pointing at the folder. Mercy felt nervous with her choice. Well, I'm not so sure they'd be a public role model. After all, some of them have mental health issues, she stated after glancing at the file. Shrugged with her choice, seeing as he was just a regular Joe with a piloting and driving ability. Lucio didn't see anything wrong either and just stayed to himself. Symmetra spoke out against her choice as well. They seem inexperienced and lucky as I see it. She tossed the file with her nose in the air. Reinhardt simply laughed as he looked at his choice, but not an insulting laugh, a hearty battle laugh. He rose from his chair. Ha ha, there is nothing wrong with them, they will make great allies in the battlefield. He shouted. McCree nodded with his choice. It ain't all that bad, besides some of them might be alright. He said, kicking his feet up. While most of them were arguing, Zenyatta made his way to the front of the room. He cleared his throat. My friends, stumbled beginnings mean nothing, but what rises from them can be beautiful. He said as he was floating in his meditation. Winston nodded with the Omnic. Guys, Zenyatta is right, we have to help them so they can help us locate the situation to our problems. He remembered something important from the Alpha file. Plus, they know the whereabouts of a powerful AI system that has the answer to most of the world's problems. I mean, he has the answer to everything. Force fields, strength enhancements, speed enablers, all of it, inside the AI. And these men know about its destination. He took off his glasses for a dramatic effect. Are you with me? All of them nodded one by one, each one reading about their current location, and last known. That's when Farah had a question. Wait, you gave all of us this last folder with some information left out. Who's this last guy and what makes him special that we all get him? She asked with everyone nodding in confusion. Winston cleaned his glasses. That's the thing, I don't know. His file was left incomplete. Which brings up the question why? He said as he stroked his chin, and more importantly, where is he? 37 miles north from an Overwatch Arctic base. There was a military base not far, but the storm was so strong that a person couldn't see a foot in front of them. However, there was a man covered in layers of warm coats at the edge of the base on lookout. As he was staring off in distance, his goatee was catching snowflakes, but his face was resembling a picture from far away still. He groaned about the cold. Why do I have to be stationed in the worst place possible? Exclamation mark quote. He shouted as everyone behind him was doing whatever they do. He paced back and forth in the snow for nearly 9 minutes as he tried to avoid frostbite. He saw 2 lights in the distance. Those 2 lights turned into 6. He got a better view with his sniper rifle and saw 3 unmarked airships coming his way. He took action and went to the pole next to him to pull out a flare gun, check if it was loaded, and shot it in the sky. The whole base saw this and took action before you knew it, as men were running out of the snow-piled base with machine guns. Some of the soldiers took point on top of the base as snipers, while others went down in the trenches. 2 men manned mounted turrets on 2 opposite sides of the base. The man who fired the flare was the only one not in his position as he was making his way to his crow's nest. The 3 ships came into range as they were met with machine gun fire and a hailstorm of bullets banging on the sides. The man on the crow's nest grabbed a grenade, pulled the pin, and waited for a ship to come into range. Just as one was above his head, he chucked the grenade into the wing blades of the ship. As it exploded, the airship came spiraling down as one of its passengers jumped down into the trenches. The man cloaked in black, wearing a skull mask, pulled 2 shotguns from his side and began spiraling onto the soldiers. He shot till his clip was empty, but instead of reloading his gun, he pulled out 2 more and kept mowing down the soldiers. One of the men on the mounted MG was able to shoot down another ship, only letting 1 passenger survive. The survivor was armored in black from head to toe and had pistols on her sides and a few frag grenades. She landed near one of the turrets and tossed a grenade up to it, exploding it to parts. She then ran across the battlefield to the other turret and shot at its shield to get its attention. The turret turned but soon stopped as the armored figure tossed another grenade up in the air. The man behind the turret shielded his face to avoid being caught in the fire. When he opened his eyes, he came to realize it was a dummy grenade, as he shielded his eyes from nothing. He turned to the left to be met with an armored fist, as he was knocked off his post. The armored figure began to lay waste to the troops as they manned the gun. All of a sudden that mayhem ended when a rocket was shot straight at them, causing them to hop off. The armored figure popped up to see who shot the rocket, but to come face to face with the lookout man. The lookout tossed the gun to the side and took off the first heavy coat he had on. As he clenched his fist and prepared for a fight, he heard gunfire die down. He then felt a sharp pain pierce his left bottom gut side. He looked down to see a smoke trail of a rifle go straight through him. He then collapsed to the floor on his knees with a tight grip on his wound. He was bleeding a lot, slowly. He knew it wouldn't be long before he'd die, at most he had a week. Then, the armored figure stepped towards him as he looked up to see who it could be. The first thing he saw was red hair and thought it was a woman. The next bit left him heartbroken. He was staring face to face with his thought to be deceased girlfriend, Tex. He was so confused. Tex. I thought you died. What are you doing? He asked as blood dripped into the snow. His girlfriend lifted his chin and spoke, sorry, but I have to do this, I have to help myself, you can't do that. She said. Not only was she leaving him but she also was calling him useless. That hurt worse than the bullet. He looked around and saw his whole squad deceased right in front of his eyes. He later saw the cloaked man grab multiple hover crates with a woman in a skin-tight leotard that had some type of high-tech goggles on her head, with purple skin. And just like that his quick glance of her disappeared as the ship doors closes and took stacks of the secret weaponry and files on them. They were being loaded on the last remaining ship that wasn't shot down by the troops. As he saw all of them load onto the ship, he got one last glance at his attackers. In the distance he saw his shooter. As they took off he crawled to a snowspeeder, and hopped on to drive west in hopes of finding help. He was heading in the right direction. Chapter 2, Red Team Recall. With Soldier 76, it had been a long drive from the airport to a grassy field in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. Morrison saw a white house with red tints as the edge woodworking. It was still in good condition. Morrison looked left slightly and found a big red barn as well, and at the top of that barn read, "Property of S-Dog," on the top. Jack looked around to see if anyone was actually working but found no one until his eyes came across the front porch. There he saw a white bearded man in overalls wearing a red shirt underneath it, with a cowboy hat on. He must have been sleeping as he rocked silently back and forth from his rocking chair. He approached the sleeping man silently as he slept in his rocking chair. Just then Jack stepped on a twig of some kind as he made a loud snap through the wind. As if on cue, the man hopped up and grabbed a shotgun from behind his chair and aimed it at Morrison. In self-defense, Morrison grabbed his assault rifle and aimed it back at the bearded man. The gray-bearded man had his grip tight as he spoke. "You darn thieves better get off my property, less, you want to pick a few buckshots out of your teeth." The man yelled angrily. Morrison must have figured this man to be an old war veteran. "At ease, soldier." Morrison commanded, "I'm looking for a man that goes by the name of Sarge. Do you have any idea where he is?" Jack asked. The man on the porch moved closer as his eyes grew tighter. What did you say? He asked, gritting his teeth. Soldier 76 lowered his gun a little bit. Sarge, do you know him? He repeated. The rough cowboy man scratched his face as he looked at the sky. Haven't heard that name since. Chorus. He said as he turned his attention back to Jack Morrison. How do you know my name? He asked. Morrison took another look at the man as he saw his current appearance. You've got to be kidding, Winston. He said to himself. He had to make sure this was the right man. You're Sarge. Known for going face to face with unimaginable odds and beating them nearly every time. He asked once more. The bearded ruffian replied, that's right, got a problem? He asked, sensing Morrison's tone. Sarge put down his shotgun. What brings you here? Came to see an old retired war dog for something. Sarge asked as he rested his shotgun on his soldiers. Jack Morrison knew he could lie his way out of this one but had to think of something to tell Winston. He turned back to Sarge as he put his hands up. No sir, just made a mistake. I'll be out of your haw, he was about to say as Sarge put a fist in the air. Soldier 76 knew this signal all too well. It was a signal given when someone sensed a trap. There was a long silence, later followed by the sound of off-road tires going over dirt. Soldier and Sarge had their weapons in their hands as the sound grew louder and louder. Out of the tall grass came 4 trucks, with 2 guys in the back and 4 inside the vehicles, totaling in 24. Just then a younger man, early 20s, came up to Sarge with a stern look. He came to the old war veteran. Sarge, what the hell you doing on my soil? He asked as he had a 6-shooter holstered. Sarge looked around for a head count. Well, as I recall your pappy sold this land to me and I paid it back, all in cash. He said, proud of his honest answer. The young arrogant man stepped forward. Yeah, you did, but now I need this land, crops are going dry except yours. He said as he pointed to the direction of his fields. Kinda suspicious, huh? He had said with hate in his green eyes. Sarge kept his gun on his shoulders, until he was sure what to do. Well, don't know what to say. You need some help keeping your crops moist. He extended his hand out. Instead of shaking his hand, the young punk unholstered his pistol. Here's what's going down. You either give me the land, admit you sabotaged my crops, or I use your carcass as fertilizer. The boys behind all cocked their guns at different times. Sarge simply put his gun in both hands as he spoke again. Son, you made one mistake. That's picking a fight with your elders. He replied as he looked back at the man in a letterman jacket. This ain't your fight, hoss. Get outta here. He asked kindly. Morrison was debating whether to help the old man, who was probably just as old as him. He didn't have any reason to help. Suddenly the punk spoke. Better hit the road, bud. Things are going to get too hard for Gramps. He was left unfinished by brute force. Sarge had hit the delinquent with the butt of the shotgun. He looked around the 23 others. Now are we going to stand around all day, or are we going to get rowdy? Sarge asked with a grin. His answer was returned when one of the boys tried to open fire on him, but he moved back as he grabbed the man in the letterman jacket and pushed him to go inside. Just as the bullets were on their heels, they both crashed through the door with all their weight smashing it down. Sarge went to the kitchen and flipped the table over as cover, pulling Jack with him. Sarge poked his head out from cover shooting buckshots. Damn it. They're gonna pay for damages to my home when I'm done with them. He said as he cocked his gun. Soldier 76 rose when Sarge dropped to release a hail of pulse rifle bullets. So you got any ideas? 76 asked the man of the house he was defending. Sarge moved to the stove to grab a lid of some kind. Question. You ever watch any Clint Eastwood movies? He asked with a smile. 10 seconds later, Sarge busted out through the window with pots and pans on his joints, head, and stomach as he rushed the punks with his shotgun. Before they had a chance to react, he said an old line he hasn't said in a while. You're about to be sergeant. He said as he grabbed his shotgun tightly. In a record time he shot 6 buckshots from his gun in 3 seconds, injuring 5 of them. When he was out of ammo, he slammed his back against the door to a truck as he reloaded his gun in 2 seconds. He smiled as he was about to release more bullets. Sarge hopped on the roof of truck as he fired at a group hiding behind the truck. 1 buckshot took 2 out. He jumped on the door, breaking it as he used it as a shield as he walked to another group of 7 more punks, letting the remaining 5 shells loose on them. As he was unloading his shells, the next truck over to the right had 5 of the 24. Before any of them shot a bullet, a Helix rocket came flying at them from out of nowhere. Sarge looked back at his home to see the man from before aiming his gun at the truck that had just exploded. Sarge pushed his back against the door to the truck on the mid-right. He reassessed the numbers again, 20 down, 4 to go. Just then a baseball bat came down on Sarge's head. Before it hit, he rolled out of the way. He tried firing his shotgun but realized he was out of ammo when he heard a clicking noise from his hands. He hesitated for a moment before grabbing the barrel and using the butt of the shotgun as a bat against the punk with a bat. Another one tried to come up behind, but Sarge grabbed the shotgun in its original position and bashed the young man's nose in with the butt. Then the last 2 came at him together when he cornered, but Sarge's plans were insane but worked nearly every time. He tossed the shotgun in the right guy's hands while he head-butted the other one, knocking him out. When the right guy tried to shoot, Sarge grabbed the shotgun and right-hooked the punk against the truck. He now was sure that was the last time the delinquents would ever go near his land. Sarge met up with the other guy as he walked over to the soldier who helped him in his time of need. Sarge extended a hand as he smiled. "You needed to tell me something, Slick?" Sarge asked with the bodies behind him. Soldier took another look at the man and his work. "Ever heard of Overwatch?" he asked. Sarge scratched the side of his nose. "Heard they disbanded," he said blatantly. Soldier stepped forward to Sarge in defense. "We're resembling, but we need men like you, who can—" He was stopped by Sarge putting a hand up. Sarge put a grain of straw in his mouth. "Let me get this straight. You want me to lead teams of soldiers against impossible odds with little to no chance of success?" he asked as Soldier 76 nodded. Sarge spat out the straw, then pulled out one knuckle duster labeled S-Dog, walked over to the leader about to get up and uppercutted him, knocking him unconscious. He turned over his shoulder and answered, "How can I resist?" he said. "With Symmetra." Symmetra was standing in front of a giant college when Massachusetts Institute of Technology got an upgrade. Their technological innovation gave it a beacon for young inventors and future geniuses all around the world. Which made her wonder, what was this man called Simmons doing here in a place for the mentally gifted? She entered a large white paneled wall room where different machine parts were being assembled into different inventions. She looked around for a young man who'd fit the picture she had in her hand. She came across a group of students gathered around a table with a laser drill. She tapped one of them wearing goggles. "Excuse me, do you know where I might find a Richard Simmons?" she asked as she pointed to the picture. The young woman looked at the picture closely. "Have you checked his own isolated room?" she asked as she pointed to it. Symmetra was confused because those were made for the top inventors. "Isolated room?" she asked again. The young woman nodded to the titanium metal, bulletproof glass window room. "Yeah, he makes the most useful and original inventions no one has ever thought of," she said, praising Simmons. Then all of a sudden an explosion was set off in the isolated room, making it fill with smoke. "That must be him now," she said plainly, as if it happens normally. Symmetra walked over to the room just as an ash and cinder-covered man walked out, coughing up more smoke. He pushed a button on a recorder he had in his pocket. "Note to self, buy more extinguishers and keep the quantum accelerator at below 2587 volts," he said as he grabbed an extinguisher and went back in the room to finish off the small fires. As he finished up the fires, Symmetra tapped his back. "Excuse me, are you Richard Simmons?" she asked. Simmons lifted his safety goggles up. "Yes, I am. Sorry for the explosion. Is this about the nitrogen capacitor keeping the systems cool? Because I did say it was in beta testing." So he rambled on about one of his famous inventions. She was impressed but stayed on task. "I'm not here on that behalf, I'm here on a different matter," she said as he was focusing on another invention. Simmons was using a screwdriver and a pair of pliers. "Sorry, but I'm a little busy focusing on the Simmons 2.5 biomechanical upgrade. So far I just can't seem to reverse the calibration of the gyroscope," he said as he had the screwdriver on the spherical-looking device. Symmetra was surprised he knew so much about machinery. "Mr. Simmons, as I was saying, I'm from Overwatch," she said, clearly trying to get through the conversation. Simmons scratched the back of his head, getting rid of ash in it. "I thought that the world disbanded you guys," he asked just to make sure. Symmetra grew annoyed she didn't get to finish her sentences. The world needs us, and right now the world is in such desperate need that it needs men like you. She said. Simmons didn't know how to respond. He was asked to be a hero but, at the same time he was at his dream school. He put his goggles down and traded them for his glasses. I'm sorry, but I don't think I can. I appreciate the offer but I'm helping the world in a new way without violence involved. Simmons shook his head in confusion. I apologize, but no. He finished. Symmetra was surprised some people pass up opportunities like this. How could you turn your back on innocent Peo? She had stopped when a loud siren went off in the building. Simmons rushed out of his space to the nearest students. Hey, Donnie, what's happening? He asked. To which Donnie replied, a fire just went off in the chemical department. He said as he rushed the opposite direction. Simmons grabbed a few gadgets from his desk, a few rectangular tech devices from his desk, and headed to the lab. At the chemical department, fires were contained in the small space and the vents were on but, the chemicals might cause hazardous reactions. Simmons and Symmetra came into the room and on first glance, the walls were crawling with fires just like the ceiling. Simmons rushed over to a student to aid them as they were coughing. Are you okay? Is that everyone? He asked the female chemist. As she was coughing she spoke. I'm fine but, cough cough Fred, he's still in there. She pointed in Fred's direction. Simmons grabbed one of his devices and bashed it against his chest, a small thin shield bubble wrapped around his body. He immediately rushed. Through the fires and debris everywhere he heard Fred somewhere in the far corner behind his desk coughing. Simmons ran to the desk. As debris fell onto him his shield deflected all the pieces of burnt drywall and metal in his path. When he made it to the desk he grabbed one of its legs with his metal arm and lifted it up with ease revealing Fred curled up. He grabbed another device and slapped it against the kid's back and grabbed him to book it to the door. As he was about 10 feet from the door, when a metal support beam fell in front of his path. Simmons looked for an alternative but only saw one wall not currently burning or blocked by debris. Simmons and Fred rushed to that side to avoid being eaten by the flames in the room. Simmons' bubble shield was about to fail when he got an idea he hadn't used for a while. Simmons aimed his arm at the door and focused on bringing out his no longer secret ultimate, Simmons-sized slaughter. As Simmons closed his eyes and Fred was behind, his arm pulled out a Gatling gun, 6-barreled Helix rockets, an Iridian blaster, a laser drill and a red dot sight. He covered his eyes as he blasted down a hole big enough for 9 people to fit through. He grabbed Fred by his collar and dragged him off outside where most of the other students were being healed by paramedics. Firefighters had just arrived on the scene when Symmetra came by outside next to Simmons to see for any damages. She asked him formally, "Are you injured?" She asked trying not to sound worried which was working. Simmons nodded in compliance. So does Overwatch have a robotics lab? He asked. She nodded in response to his question. He looked at his burnt school, then looked back. I'm in. He said as they walked to Symmetra's car. With Lucio and they were somewhere under an overpass in Rio de Janeiro, as multiple street racers were lining up to see the competitors. Lucio and saw different displays of muscle to speedster cars, and only a few hover cars. The two went to a holographic board at the edge of a crowd, supposedly forming a lane for racers. As they read down the list of names they saw a name Yamato Hibiki, driving a blue hover car V9 Jaguar, hailing from Tokyo. Another with the name Hans Steiner, with a green Koenigsegg Agera R17, hailing from Germany. Another from Mexico with the name Jeff Escardo, coming in with a pristine red Lamborghini. And last but not least, the name Dexter Griff riding an old-school 1970 black fading to orange Dodge Charger. Fast and Furious fans, this is for you. Lucio and were surprised cars like that were still even available. As the cars were on the finish line the current DJ put in, Android by Craddy, to get the people hyped as the racers came up. Then Yamato looked to left to his German competitor, who then looked to Jeff, who all looked at the hailing champion. The male Brazilian announcer came to the front of the start. Alright, listen up, you all know the rules, so I don't have to repeat myself. They all shared a look except Griff who stared dead straight at the track. The man pulled out a hologram of a starting flag girl, ready. The figure asked as the racers' engines roared, steady. She said as some of them began to creep, go. And like that they all exploded off the line. The race started with Yamato in first, Hans in second, Jeff in third, with Griff in last place. Griff wasn't worried, because he had more skill and experience than the other racers. Griff was coming in on the Mexican racer, Jeff. He was right on his bumper sticker when Jeff moved to the side to block Griff. Griff tried to maneuver around him, but whenever he saw an opening, Jeff closed it up in an instant. Jeff was beginning to be smug. "No, not that way, Griff." Translated. Griff looked up ahead, and for a split second he saw half of a slanted metal plate sticking out. He faked left to throw Jeff in the wrong direction. He saw Jeff turn left but then swiftly went right on the ramp. Jeff closed in on Griff, making him drive into the wall, only to give Griff a split wall riding ability thanks to the speed. Griff sped up ahead and left the Mexican racer in the dust. He went ahead of the track to catch up to the German racer, Hans in second. He got right next to Hans when Hans bumped into Griff, trying to make him go off-road. He bumped into Griff 3 times already, thinking he could push the old car out of chances of winning the race. So far, all he was able to do was edge Griff toward the side. Griff came up with an idea that would either work or fail, costing him the race and promised money. Griff sped in front of the German car just barely over him with his back tires aligned with Hans's front ones. Hans saw this as a rare opportunity and attacked Griff's back wheels, but that was Griff's plan. On contact, Griff's muscle car spun around. He shifted the gears to reverse and was right in front of Hans. He and Hans had a long stare down when Griff was stalling and waiting for the perfect time. Griff back sped up and in an instant, drifted out of Hans's way and back in the race. Hans stared at Griff as he drove away but failed to see Griff's plan fast enough as he was heading for a wall. Here turn only to make do a barrel roll and smash right onto the wall, hood first. Griff drove up to catch up to Yamato, who was just a few miles from completing the set course. He saw Griff in his rear view mirror and grew pissed with disappointment and anger. He grabbed his phone. "Do it. Now," he shouted into the device. As Griff was closing in on Yamato, 2 heavy high-speed SUVs came closing in on his car. Out of the SUVs came men with AK-97s, Future Remember, loaded and aimed at Griff's car. They fired at the windshield in the back of his car, trying to aim for any critical shots that could kill him or make him swerve off course. Griff reached behind for the one thing he didn't use in a while, the one thing that made him a demolitions expert, the Griff shot. The SUV that was on his right closed in to the point where the 2 drivers could see each other at the window. When the driver came up to the window, he was met face to face with the barrel of the Griff shot. A grenade came shooting straight at the other driver's face, igniting the front of the car on impact. The other driver drove up to Griff's left side and began firing multiple shots at him. One bullet hit Griff's right shoulder. Griff opened his glove compartment and saw a first aid kit. He immediately ignored it and grabbed the candy bar next to it labeled, "Quick Snack." He began to devour the candy instantly. Within a few seconds his arm was healing and patching itself. He grabbed the Griff shot with his left arm as the car began to speed close enough for another shootout. When the car was about to fire, Griff slammed the brakes as he held the Griff shot out the window. Griff slashed the tires and tore off the hubcap to the front right wheel. He punched it as he saw the SUV try to turn but ended up doing barrel rolls until it landed on its side. Griff sped up to Yamato's car as his competitor grew more and more furious than fast. Yamato hit all 3 buttons in his nitrogen tanks and hauled his ass to the finish line just a full 2 miles away. Griff shook his head as he opened a compartment next to him, revealing a funnel leading to his engine's fuel. He grabbed a different can labeled, "Meth Shroom Juice," and poured the whole can into the funnel. As fast as a bullet, Griff's car went from 180 miles per hour to 320 miles per hour in 5 seconds, pushing him back into his seat with so much force. Yamato was 1 drift away from total victory. When out of his rear view mirror he saw a blur of black and orange. Griff drifted next to him on the turn, sharing a smirk and a middle finger as he zoomed past him. On the finish line, Griff was a full 10 seconds in front of Yamato as he hopped out to see all his adoring fans watching him. He was standing as tall as his file said, but instead of looking completely husky, he had bulky arms that looked like Zarya's. But on the right one he had a Hawaiian arm tattoo and only a small gut. Yamato got out of his car to kick it, then storm off to Griff, in outrage. He shouted as Griff was smiling with everyone. He pushed people out of the way. "You cheated. I want my money," he demanded. Griff calmly smiled. I don't think I cheated, it's not against rules to use special fuel. He said as he moved closer. He pointed to the real cheater, however, I do believe trying to have the Yakuza kill me is. He said as he pointed to his bullet-hole car. The Japanese racer pulled out a pistol behind him, give me my damn money. He said as he pointed to Griff's car. Griff looked toward the side then grabbed the gun and left jabbed the daylights out of Yamato. Griff stood above the man on the ground as his nose was bleeding, now you listen to me. He said as he grabbed his shirt. If you want my money, earn it. He released his collar to let him fall. Everyone stared at Griff. Griff diverted their attention, drinks on me. He shouted as everyone cheered for him. Griff heard a new voice come behind. Hey buddy, nice racing back there. He heard someone compliment him. Griff turned around to see a Brazilian with his hair pinned back and a Korean girl, probably 19. I don't suppose you know who we are? He asked. Griff grabbed a cold Corona from an ice chest. Lucio, world-famous DJ, world-famous gamer. He answered. He took a sip before continuing. What brings you to this part of Brazil to congratulate me? He asked. Lucio and shared a look, responded, the world needs us again, it may not admit it but it does. She said as Griff continued to drink, and right now, the world needs someone like you. He said with plea in his eyes. Griff simply walked towards his car to grab the Griff shot, then walked back, he tilted his head to the side, why not? He said. Lucio and smiled as they both looked up at him. With Winston, he had just received word that 3 of the men on the list had been located and recruited. He smiled as he checked them off the list, good work, agents. And in the meantime, have any of you heard anything about Leonard Church yet? He asked them all at separate times. He got no response on where his location was. He crawled over to his desk with a globe, as he spun it he asked himself, where could you be? Somewhere only 12 miles north from Overwatch Arctic Base. The snowmobile Church was driving only lasted for 25 miles when he stopped to find it out of gas. He looked at his compass to find instead of heading west, he was going south the whole time. He began to pace back and forth from his snowmobile to the south direction he was driving in. Church mumbled to himself for a while, then looked at the snow-pouring sky, cut me a break here God. Why? He screamed at the sky. After a few seconds of more complaining, Church looked back at the vehicle that carried him so far. He pulled off his sniper then began to continue treading south, hoping to find a break. This is the end of part 1 of this new What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to my channel.